So today I'm going to talk about the brutal assassination of the Romanov family. So before I get started, I just want to say I'm going to use the dates according to the calendar we use now, not the calendar they used back then. It's only off by like 20-something dates. But that means that, for example, the March Revolution, which was the one that overthrew the Tsar in 1917, back then it was the February Revolution, and the November Revolution, which put Lenin in power, was in October. But I'm going to use the modern dates. So I'm going to use the March Revolution, November Revolution, just FYI. Anyway, so just a quick background on the Tsar and who his family was. He was crowned Tsar in 1896 after the death of his father, Alexander III, and would go on to marry Alexandra, the Tsarina, that same year. They would go on to have 5 children, including 1 boy, Alexei, and 4 girls, Maria, Olga, Anastasia, and it's another Alexandra, I'm not sure. But they had four girls and 1 boy, the youngest one being the boy. Now, people were not all happy with the Tsar, and therefore in March 1917, the provisional government was set up, and the Tsar was forced to abdicate in the March Revolution. Then a few months later, Vladimir Lenin came to Russia, and with the Bolsheviks took over in November 1917, the Bolshevik Revolution. So when we talk about the Bolshevik Revolution, we mean the November one. When we talk about the revolution that overthrew the Tsar, we mean the March one. Although these are kind of put together, and these are the foundation of the second revolution idea in extreme left-wing politics. So just in case you want to know that. I mean, after Lenin took over, a civil war broke out from 1918 to 1922, and then ending up in the establishment of the Soviet Union. And during these years, the royal imperial family were in the control of the Bolsheviks. In July 1918, white Russian forces, the Red Army, the Red Russian forces were the Bolshevik army. The white ones were the other side. They were the side that were sympathetic to the Romanov family. So the Red Army despised the idea of the monarchy, and if they were alive, they would just represent the monarchy and that it was still present. But the Red Army is like, yeah, fine, we can depose him, it's fine, let's just leave it at that. So, by July 1917, the white Russian forces were kind of getting close to Yekaterinburg, which was where Nicholas and his family were being held. The authorities there, so Bolsheviks were told to prevent any rescue. I mean, Nicholas had tried to contact Germany and Britain, where his 2 cousins were living. The king of Britain was his cousin, and the Kaiser of Germany was his cousin. At this point, Kaiser was still in power. Kaiser would go on to abdicate in November 1918, but this is July, so Kaiser was still in power. And the authorities were like, I mean, that didn't happen. The British and the Germans didn't reply. So Nicholas was out of options, and he was just basically at the mercy of the Bolsheviks. The authorities, like I said, were told to not let them escape, and not let them contact anyone who would help them escape and keep them controlled. Then, in a secret meeting of the Yekaterinburg Soviet, a Soviet, by the way, is not a Soviet is like a group of Bolsheviks. It's like a council. Sorry about that. Those are my neighbors. It's like a council. I don't know the exact definition, but it's like the Soviet Union. It's kind of the union of different councils. Anyway, so there was a meeting of the Yekaterinburg Soviet, and there it was decided that the Romanov family would go on to be executed. They were being held at Ipatiev House, which was named the House of Special Purpose. Obviously, the Romanovs didn't know this, but I mean, it was going to be the last house they were going to be in. And obviously they did not know that was the house of the special purpose. That was only the name of the house between the Soviets and other and historians after this, and other people in Russia after the assassination. Well, they had a lot of strict rules, as you can probably guess. They weren't allowed to speak any other language that wasn't Russian. They couldn't even look at through the windows. Alexandra, I think, yeah, it was like the Alexandra, the daughter, not the Serena. She was, he was constantly looking through a window, and she was told by Yakov Jurovsky, who was the commander in Ipatiev house, to stop, and she disobeyed him. So they blocked the windows, and I mean the Tsar and Serena were like, "Hey, can we at least have some windows here?" Yakov Jurovsky was like, "Fine, but you can't look through them. Like, just you can maybe peek, but not actively look, not stay by the window." And eventually they had to put bars on them because Alexandra, daughter, was constantly looking through it. And then came the night of July 16th, 1918, the day of where the last day of the Romanov family. Well, Jakov Jurovsky and a bunch of his bodyguards or other Soviet soldiers said, "Okay, fine, you, Nicholas, Alexandra, 5 children, and 4 servants, you're gonna come down with us to this basement." So they were taken down to the basement and stood up in 2 rows, so like to take a photo. That's what they were told. And while they were taking a photo, which was to calm the Bolsheviks, like they hadn't escaped, they were still in Bolshevik hands. They were also waiting for a truck or a van or something to transport them to a safer location. I mean, it was all a lie to keep them calm and not cause any chaos. Well, they obviously, all the Romanovs were obeyed because before they were at the mercy of the Bolsheviks. So the servants, the children, the parents, they just sat there. They brought in 2 special chairs, one for Alexandra and one for Alexei. Alexei had been diagnosed with hemophilia, which meant that he was quite fragile. He had a few bleeding episodes, but he was kind of okay now. But still, they wanted to make sure he was going to be safe and nothing was going to happen to him, especially. Kind of ironic, seeing as a few moments later they would all be assassinated. But hey, right now they wanted to calm the Romanovs down. Well, suddenly they were just waiting there. They did hear like a truck. They did hear movement, and Nicholas would naturally calm his family, saying, "Hey, they're coming to save us, or they're coming to transport us to a safer location away from the White Russians," which Nicholas obviously knew the White Army was going to try and help them escape, but of course he couldn't say that in the room with a few Bolshevik soldiers. So then they were just waiting, and suddenly a bunch of around a dozen armed men burst into the room, and they read out the death sentence, saying Nikolai Alexandrovich, which was Nicholas's full name, because of so and so reasons, you're going to be executed. Nicholas was like, his last words were, "What? What? Like, what the hell are you talking about? Oh, I'm going to be executed?" And they repeated the order and shot him 3 times in the chest. He was the first of the Romanovs to be killed. Of course, everyone was in shock. They had just seen, Alexandra had just seen her husband executed, and the children were like, "You killed my dad." But before they could do anything, Alexandra was shot, Serena was shot in the head. And after this, hail gunfire started shooting. Maria, one of the children, went to the door to try and escape. She was shot in the thigh. And they just kept on shooting, and the room was filled with smoke. There was smoke everywhere, and they couldn't see anything. So Jakov Jurovsky told them, "Okay, stop shooting. We can't see anything. Let's just check if any have survived." Yeah. All the imperial children, all five, had actually been survived. The only one who had actually been hurt was Maria. So the reason why is because all the children had been wearing jewelry underneath their clothes. Because they were told they were going to be moving to a safer location, they said, hey, let's take some of our valuables, let's hide them in our clothes, so if we're ever allowed to escape, we could still like sell them and make some money. So of course, Alexandra had them too. Nicholas didn't, but Alexandra did, but she was shot in the head, so that didn't help. Well, the children were all, well, fine, except Maria, but the Bolsheviks were not about to leave the children alive. So they went up to them and stabbed them with bayonets, although these were really ineffective, really messy. The first one to be stabbed was Alexei, and he was stabbed several times, but he was still breathing, and he was shot in the head. He was dead. Family dogs were also stabbed, except one spaniel, Alexei Spaniel, actually survived. Ended up in British hands, and it lived out its days in Windsor. So that was good. And the other children were stabbed and shot. The majority were shot because the bayonets weren't effective. I think at one point when they were picking up the bodies, one of the girls moved and they shot her again in the head. No survivors. There were no survivors. There was a whole myth that Anastasia survived the shooting, but there were many imposters, but none of them were actually her. Well, it does look like this execution was kind of impromptu. That the Bolsheviks had said, okay, fine, let's just kill them because the White Russians are coming, but it wasn't like that. They had been stocking up on benzene and sulfuric acid to dispose of the bodies, and this has been going on for weeks and weeks and weeks. Behind the Romanovs' back, they had no idea this was going on. And, well, when they were all killed, their bodies were transported and taken, they were buried. Obviously, with the benzene and sulfuric acid, he attempted to burn them beyond recognition, but that didn't work out. And, in 1994, I think it was, the bodies were uncovered. Except I think Anastasia's body was the last one to be uncovered or something, because they were still debate as to whether the imposters were actually her. There was actually like a movie on it, animated movie. I think there's also a musical, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, it turns out that was all fake because Anastasia had indeed died. But this was all uncovered after the fall of the Soviet Union. So yeah, that is the assassination of the Romanov family. This brutal murder of the Tsar, Tsarina, and their 5 children. The youngest one, he was born in the 1910s, so he was around 8 years old. He was really, really, really young. And it's just brutal. It just shows how the Bolsheviks, it's not the figure of the monarchy they hated, it's just the Tsar. Just they wanted him eliminated and his family and everything that reminded them of him. It's just brutal. And there is a debate as to whether Lenin gave the order or not. I think he did. I think he didn't say execute them like this, but he told Jurovsky, take care of the Romanovs. Take care of them. Do whatever you want. And Jurovsky took that to mean, oh, execute them brutally. And yeah, that is the brutal assassination of the Romanov family. Kind of chaotic, really sad because they didn't deserve that. Yeah, their method of government wasn't that good. Disastrous World War I policy, the whole Rasputin fiasco. But I don't think they deserved that brutal murder. So yeah, that is pretty much it. Thank you for watching.